Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook and today pod 19 I'll be looking at a result of Southampton by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you an exclusive interview with Alan Pardew, James Tompkins and Christian Benteke after the game. So let's begin. A brace from Christian Benteke and a James Tompkins goal helped Crystal Palace win their first game in 8 attempts as they cruised to victory against Southampton. Memories of 6 defeats in a row evaporated into the skies above Selhurst Park alongside weeks of frustration as Alan Pardew's men produced a fine display, which was punctuated with the first clean sheet of the season as the Saints were put to the sword. Finally, receiving a bit of luck after months of misfortune, the Eagles were gifted the opener when Benteke pounced on a costly error by Fraser Forster on 33 minutes, and Tompkins followed up with his second minutes later before the Belgian hitman added his 7th of the campaign to secure a long overdue taste of success. The first 17 minutes were devoid of any notable events as both sides began unsettled, but eventually after some quick feet from Boufal, he saw himself skip along the touchline and cut the ball back, and after it was cleared into the path of Ryan Bertrand, his shot deflected off Joe Ledley and rippled into the side netting. After calmly dealing with a couple of corners, Palace then began an attack of their own, which saw Benteke steer a Wilfried Zaha cross just wide of his head, but just before the half an hour mark, the birthday boy was handed a gift by Fraser Forster to allow him the easiest of ways to find a net with his first goal at Selhurst Park for the Eagles. There seemed to be no danger when Jose Font paid a simple back pass to the England shot stopper, but as soon as he went to strike it downfield, the ball bobbled and caused the goalkeeper to miss it completely, allowing Benteke to capitalise on his howler and tap in from a couple of yards. That unexpected opportunity lifted the mood around the ground, and just 3 minutes later the Eagles suddenly found themselves 2 goals ahead. After winning a corner at the White Horse Lane end, Jason Puncheon sent it towards the front post where a clever flick on from Ledley deceived the Saints' defence, and Tompkins was in a perfect spot to score from close range for the second successive weekend. Palace managed to take their significant advantage into the break intact, despite a Hollenberg fizzing a half volley just wide of the mark seconds before the half-time whistle sounded. But needing a quiet second half just to secure a previous win and secure a maiden shoutout, a more defensive-minded Palace just got that in the second half. Southampton began on top, and just a couple minutes after the restart, Nathan Redmond salmoned past 2 players before standing to cross up to the back post, but Boufal made a hash of his first-time effort and skied a good chance. The Saints began pushing hard for a goal that would bring them back into the game, but they were failing to trouble Wayne Hennessy sufficiently, with Shaw as the next player to smash an attempt into the stands with a long ranger, and after being introduced after the hour mark, Josh Sims wasn't far away from finding the top corner with a curling effort, but the teenager also missed the mark. The hosts failed to produce a decent shot on target during the first half of the second 45, with their only chance coming when Andros Townsend jinked inside and blasted over. But there was a scare for Alan Pardew's men on 78 minutes when their goal frame was rattled following a spot of head tennis broke out in the box after a corner, and Virgil van Dijk nodded into the top corner of the crossbar before the danger was cleared. But with minutes to go, the long-awaited win was wrapped up by Benteke. Puncheon sent a corner into the air which was cleared to Mark James McArthur, who controlled it on his chest and put a shot goalwards. It was blocked, but the ball spanned to Puncheon, who simply squared the ball to Benteke to slide home and trigger some long-awaited celebrations in SE25. Crystal Palace left the disappointment of the previous week's performance against Swansea behind them by collecting a win after 6 defeats in a row and by keeping the first clean sheet of the season against a lacklustre Southampton team. It wasn't a classic, but crucial wins often aren't. Now for some positives from the game. The clean sheet was a worthy prize for a defensive performance that showed heart, commitment and solidarity. It was a team effort, and while the performance packed quality, it may just be enough to set the foundations that will allow the club to rebuild after weeks of disappointment. Now for some negatives from the game. There really wasn't a great number of negatives. It's crucial, however, that Alan Pardew doesn't revert back to his previous style in the next coming fixtures. Palace must keep their defensive solidity if they are to have any hope of collecting more points. It was dubbed a must-win game for Crystal Palace by many supporters and pundits alike, and Crystal Palace did not disappoint, with 2 goals from Christian Benteke and a James Tompkins goal helping the Eagles to a much-needed and morale-boosting victory against Southampton. But what do we actually learn from the game? Here are 5 things we picked up at Selhurst Park. Number 1. What a present. Crystal Palace were in need of a change in luck, and it came in the shape of a howler from Fraser Forster, with his swing and a miss gift-wrapping a goal for birthday boy Christian Benteke. The goal changed the complexion of what had been a dull game, as Palace went on to score again moments later. Number 2. Set-piece woes for Southampton. The second goal for Crystal Palace was akin to the type of defending from set-pieces we have seen from the Eagles in recent weeks, with James Tompkins being left with a tap-in at the far post, after some statuesque defending from the visitors. Number 3. The solidity was back. Alan Pardew made changes to his defence and they worked, with the Eagles looking far more comfortable at the back. Admittedly, they weren't really tested too often by the out-of-sorts Southampton side, but Palace defended well as they recorded the first clean sheet since a 0-0 draw back at home against Everton back in April. Number 4. Is Starbrook a lucky charm for Palace? There wasn't much to say about the man in the middle as he let the game flow and did very little to upset either team, but Neil Starbrook was something of a lucky charm for Palace, it would seem, with the Eagles not losing any of their last 6 games he has been referee for. This was the second Palace game this season he has been a referee for, with the other being a victory, the 2-1 against Middlesbrough back in September. And number 5, that winning feeling. Crystal Palace fans haven't had too much to cheer about in recent weeks, but there was never really any doubt after this result, after 2 goals in 3 first half minutes, with Benteke's second half tap-in rounding off the victory. Of course it was much needed given the run that Palace had been on, and it moved them above the Premier League champions Leicester City. So now you've heard the match review, we're now going to move on to the player rankings. But before we start with that, don't forget to follow us across social media on Twitter and Facebook at @eCrystalPalace for all the latest news. And for all you Facebook users out there, don't forget to check out our Facebook group so you can join with the latest discussions, read the latest news and post your own opinion. So like I said there, if you do want to get in contact with us and you are on social media, then of course you can follow both our accounts, which you can find on both Twitter and Facebook using the @CrystalPalace. And obviously if you do want to keep up to date with all the latest Palace news, then I would recommend you follow both of them accounts, because we do regularly update it with the news. And obviously if you do want to know when the next podcast is coming out as well, you can obviously look on there for that. And obviously, if you are on Facebook, I would highly recommend you do join the Facebook group, because like I said already, there's a lot of discussion on there, because after the game, fans go on there and post their own opinion. So if you do want to have a say about something you found in the game or something you saw in the game which you think other fans might not have seen, then of course you can go into the group and obviously add a little bit of discussion. And obviously similar to the social media groups which you can follow, we do post regularly updated with the latest news. So once again, if you do want to keep up to date with all the latest news, then of course go onto the Facebook group. But obviously last few weeks I've set a challenge to the listeners to see whether anyone could give me a list of their player rankings. In the last few weeks, listeners have gone in the comments below on YouTube and commented who they thought was the best player, and whether, given each of the players their player rankings. And I'll offer that challenge to you again this week. So if you do want to go below in the comments on YouTube and do comment all of the 11 players plus the 3 substitutions and give them ratings from 1 to 10, so I can compare my player rankings and what I thought of their performance and compare it to yours. And obviously if you don't have YouTube, or you don't want to comment on the YouTube, then of course you could screenshot, say, a notepad, and of course you could tweet us with it. But obviously this week we are going to start in goal with Wayne Hennessy, who I'm going to give a 6. Kept a clean sheet with the club's first of the Premier League season. Hennessy was hardly troubled and did the basics right, making a crucial save at 2-0, which was closely followed up by Palace scoring a third goal minutes later, and also was commanding from set plays. Now set for a long run in the team after Steve Mondondo's injury. So obviously Wayne Hennessy here, the first thing really to start with him is, we haven't kept a clean sheet all season, and this was the first game we've kept a clean sheet this season. Obviously if you do want to look at statistics across this season and last season, it's the first clean sheet in the Premier League for 18 games. Now obviously Hennessy, as the goalkeeper, he didn't concede any goals, so I suppose you could say he was crucial to the way that Palace played. And actually the reason I've given him a 6 is because he was quiet. He'd done the basics right. You know, you would expect him to get down low when shots were coming into the area. You'd expect him to be commanding from set pieces, and actually in this game he done both of them right. You know, he done the basics things right by making sure that when a cross was coming in or when a shot was coming in, he could get down low to make the saves, and also commanding from set play. So obviously set pieces have been our weaknesses over the last few weeks, and that's why we've conceded so many goals from them. But with this game we had so many corners, Southampton had so many corners whipping the ball in, and so many free kicks as well. But you know, Hennessy made sure the players knew where they had to be, and a prime example of that, which I've highlighted and pundits have highlighted it over the last few weeks, was actually Christian Benteke. And obviously in this game Benteke was making sure he marked his man, he was making sure he was on the back post, and obviously Hennessy was quite crucial to that because Hennessy was commanding people, making sure they knew where to go. So once again, he's, you know, not only making saves and commanding the area, but also he's helping other players within the team to be helpful defensively. And obviously I've given him a 6 because, you know, he didn't do anything spectacular throughout the game, and although he did keep a clean sheet, there was no like fantastic world-class saves because, you know, he wasn't really troubled by Southampton. But he did make a very crucial save at 2-0, you know, got down low, managed to tip the ball away. So on a few occasions he tipped the ball away, but this one was definitely a much better save than the other ones he made, and it was quite crucial because minutes later Palace went up the other end and scored. So it's just showing that how the fact that he kept us in the game resulted in us having a bit more up morale, and obviously we could go on to score. And obviously I did say at the end of sort of my summary of his performance, you know, he's now set for a very long run into the team because obviously Steve Mondondo's injury, I believe it's a knee injury, so he's going to be out for maybe another month. So Hennessy's got this chance to go back into the squad, so hopefully he can capitalise on this opportunity and actually, you know, cement his place back as the first choice goalkeeper. But, you know, do comment below the video whether you think you prefer Hennessy or whether you prefer Mondondo, or even if you want the legend Speroni to come back. But certainly I think Hennessy, a 6 for him is a fair result, and hopefully now he's got this running in team, he can build a little bit more confidence and obviously, you know, get better progressively. But obviously moving on to the back line now, obviously starting with the right back James Tomkins, who I'm going to give an 8. Took the place of Martin Kelly but at right back, and an assured contribution to Palace's defensive efforts. Back-to-back goals for the defender. His goal, Palace's second, showed excellent awareness too. That's now 3 goals for the season already. He did well on the right and had experience from that position from his days at West Ham. It could be something he could stick with at Palace moving forward. So obviously James Tomkins here, I've given him an 8. I've given, you know, a very high rating, and actually he fully deserves it. It was a very, very, very good performance from him. And obviously we saw last week against Swansea, you know, the crucial tackle he made, the reason I put him on the man of the match award. And obviously this game, once again, an 8, a very solid performance from him. And obviously in this game, instead of playing centre back, he did play right back, and obviously because Martin Kelly's been a liability in the last few weeks, and actually he made an assured contribution to Palace's defensive efforts. So obviously he is primarily a defensive a centre back, so more central player. But you know, when he was at West Ham, he has that experience from playing as a right back and a left back for West Ham. So you know, it wasn't an unusual position for him to play, and actually he done very well to Palace's defensive efforts. So obviously where he's primarily a centre-back, it meant that when, say, Southampton were on the counter-attack, he could cut inside and actually have that experience to making tackles, which meant that he had a lot more better performance. And obviously we talk about right-backs and left-backs being very good offensively. You know, Tomkins, prime example of that. So similar to Ward in the fact that he likes to run down the channel. This game, James Tomkins, although he isn't the fastest player, he'd try and run down the wings and try and link up the players. And that's primarily why we won the game, the fact that all the players were linking up well together. And I think Tomkins was, you know, a lot better. And obviously Martin Kelly, like I said already, a liability, let's say, in the last few games, not really having very good defensive efforts, not making tackles, not making, you know, passes, and not supplying other players. But Tomkins, he done that. He made the tackles when he had to. He got forward. And obviously talking about him going forward, you know, back-to-back goals. He scored one against Swansea from a set piece, and he scored one here from a set piece. So, you know, both these goals he scored, excellent awareness, and obviously that was Palace's second goal. So it just showed that when the opportunity came to him, he stayed composed, was alert, and was able to take the opportunity. And obviously, on just talking about stats and goals, you know, he scored 3 goals already this season. So it's just showing, similar to Scott Dan, you know, he is a very good defender, can make tackles, can make blocks, can be an aerial defensive he's got the aerial ability, but also he's an attacking threat as well. 3 goals this season already for a centre-back, which is pretty good. And, I've said this already, hopefully now he's sort of moving positions and he's probably solidified his position in the team. Hopefully he can use the experience that he's had from his time at West Ham to bring something to, to Palace. And obviously, Palace, it could be something we stick with, the fact that he can play, he's versatile, he can play at centre-back, right-back, left-back. So that's something that Palace should capitalise on and stick with it moving forward. Because, if Kelly can be a liability, then we should drop him and give Tompkins a chance to play this thing. Because once again, it is something, he was a fantastic performance. And that's why he warranted the 8. The fact that he scored the goal, which was fantastic, a lovely awareness with that. But the fact that he used his experience from his time playing right back at West Ham, he used that to his advantage to make tackles and also to go forward. And obviously the final thing really, I talk about players being in the Premier League Team of the Week. Tompkins this week's, and this is not based on whether pundits think that players were good, because in that instance he wouldn't have got in, but this is based statistically. So this is based on things like chances created, take-ons, goals, assists. All these things are compiled together. I think distance run as well. All of these stats are compiled together, and obviously that generates a number which each player gets. And obviously this week, James Tompkins got the highest rating out of any right back. So congratulations to him. He got into the Premier League Team of the Week. But certainly there could have been 1 or 2 other Palace players getting in there as well, because it was a very solid performance by us. And the fact that we kept a clean sheet just shows how good of a defensive work all of the defence done, to be honest. But James Tompkins' contribution was good as well. But like I said, an 8 for him. Another goal he scored, another defensive work was fantastic. And obviously, if you're getting in the Team of the Week, you're going to have a high rating. Obviously, I will say now, he is a hot contender for the Man of the Match award. Obviously, now to move on to the centre-back, Scott Dann, who I'm going to give a 7. A captain's performance. The return of Dan's defensive partnership with Damien Delaney made a significant improvement to the defence. The skipper deserved a clean sheet and marshalled his troops very well. He didn't have any goal-scoring chances this time, but the emphasis was on keeping them out, and he played a big part in that. So obviously, Scott Dann here, the captain, I've given him a 7 because it was a captain's performance, a good way to describe it. He commanded the side very well, as you would expect a captain to do. And obviously, I think that's primarily, yes, we know he's a good captain, he's a good leader, being very vocal, but I think that was, the reason he'd done better in this game, let's say, in the captain role, was the fact that he was now brought back his old partnership with Damien Delaney, and that made a significant improvement to the defence. Because what you've got there, you've got a 35-year-old, very experienced player playing in the Premier League who can help Dan, who's slightly younger, maybe slightly more inexperienced, and that sort of worked to our advantage. The fact that we had Damien Delaney with the experience and the leadership, and then you have Dan with his experience as well and leadership. So them two combined made a very solid back line. And to be honest, we talk about, players playing well. Scott Dann, yes, he hasn't been playing well maybe the last 2-3 games, but the start of the season, the first sort of, let's say, 8 games of the season, he is playing very well. And to be honest, he did deserve a clean sheet in other games, and he finally got his clean sheet, and I think that was well deserved for him. All of the defenders, to be honest, especially Dan and Damien Delaney, they both put in very solid defensive performances. And obviously I've talked about him being a captain's performance, so that's the performance he had. He marshalled his troops very well. He was commanding in the area. He made sure players knew what to do. And obviously I think that's primarily the reason he improved in that, say, in the Swansea game, was the fact that he had his partner next to him with the experience as well as the leadership. So that really helped him. And obviously we know he can be a threat from set pieces. But in this game, he didn't really have any clear goal-scoring chances. So, for a defender, you like them to have a chance from set pieces. But in this game, he couldn't really get his head on a few chances to score. But at the end of the day, you want a defender to be good defensively. And in this game, he just showed, once again, his defensive qualities. And obviously, I've said this already, yes, he didn't have any goal-scoring chances, but he was very good defensively. And, at the end of the day, as a defender, you want to emphasise the fact of keeping the other players out. And although he wasn't very good at our set pieces, didn't really have any chances, whenever Southampton had opportunities, he was fantastic. He made sure that when their balls were coming in, he could defend them well, and he played a massive part. I think if it wasn't for him and Damien Delaney, that height we've got in the team, that experience, maybe they would have scored from set pieces. But because they stayed strong, they were very physical, it meant that they could get the ball away. But Scott Dann, a 7, I think it's fully deserved for him, because it was a fantastic captain's performance from him. Commanded the side well, and I've said this already, he's played so well this season, through injury, before injury, so you know, he deserved the clean sheet and he got it today. And obviously, I've said this already, he didn't really have any goal scoring opportunities himself, but whenever Southampton did, he was able to contain them. Obviously, now moving on to Delaney, who I've touched on a bit, but I am going to give him an 8. Committed, strong, assured, a real man and match contender. Delaney's return to the back line helped Palace to keep a clean sheet. He threw himself at everything and his experience was vital. A solid and impressive game. As Pardew said after the match, he's not the most talented player, but makes up for it in his character and personal attributes. So obviously Delaney here, I've given him an 8, and as you can see already, you know, it was a very solid performance from him. And I will say this already, same with Tompkins, a real man and match contender. Now the 3 words I used to describe his performance were committed, strong and assured. And obviously committed is, you know, marking a man. When obviously playing defensively, you know, you want to be able to mark a man. He was committed to the man, so when the man was running at him, he wouldn't give up and let him be beaten for pace. You know, he made sure he stayed with the man, stayed committed, made sure he made the tackles, which meant that we could get the ball away. So all of them things were good about his game. Obviously being strong, he was a very good physical presence for Palace. You know, when set pieces were coming in from Southampton, he used that sort of height and that physicality to get the ball away. And obviously being assured, you know, we kept a clean sheet, you could rely on the defence, and that's why I was assured. I was sure when I saw him on a team sheet, I thought, you know, he's a very good defender and hopefully he could bring that to the side. And it was a very assured performance from him. You know, he made sure the defence was solid at the back, and, you know, ultimately helped us to keep the clean sheet. And obviously the last few weeks he hasn't really been in the team, he's been on the bench, obviously with Tompkins playing in this role, but because Kelly went out and Tompkins moved out wide, it meant that Delaney could come back in. And obviously, if you look at it, Delaney's coming back into the side and we've kept a clean sheet, so that shows how crucial of a player he is. And obviously we talk about his experience and the fact that he's very committed, strong and assured, and obviously he threw himself at everything. You know, his experience, you could see it, it was very vital, you know, the fact that we played. And, you know, the way, you know, Pardew said after the game, he's not the most talented player, but he makes up for it in his character and personal attributes. And that's just, you know, said it there. You know, he's got experience, so, you know, he knows how to make the tackle. He knows how to, you know, push players hard. He knows how to, you know, bully players off the ball with his physicality. And that sort of character helps us through the game. And, you know, his personal attributes, we know he isn't the fastest player, so he can't really catch up with fast attackers. But his personal attributes are the physicality, are the fact that he can make tackles. And ultimately, it led to us, you know, doing well defensively throughout the game. And I thought another phrase, really, like I've done with other players, to describe his performance was a solid and impressive game. Because it was really solid, because we kept a clean sheet, so showing his solidity there. And obviously, it was a very impressive for him, because, you know, he threw himself at everything. He was making tackles, making blocks, you know, doing everything he can to keep the ball out of the box. And like I said this already, his experience was crucial. You know, I've said Dan is a very good captain, but I think the fact that Delaney came back into the team with his experience helped Dan to, you know, command his way through the rest of the game. But like I said here, you know, it's a well-deserved 8 from me, but a really strong contender for the man of match award. And like I said, the 3 words to describe his performance: committed, strong and assured. A very solid defensive performance from him. Obviously, moving on now to the left-back, Joe Ward, who I'm going to give a 6. We've seen him at left-back before, and he didn't disappoint. We'd expect most natural right-backs to struggle on the wing, but Ward did exceptionally well and restricted Southampton's winger Nathan Redmond to long-range shots. He can play in a number of positions and didn't look out of place. Could be there for the time being now into next year. So for Joe Ward here, I've given him a 6, and, you know, it is significantly lower than the other defensive players. Obviously, with Delaney and Tompkins getting an 8, and Scott Dan getting a 7, but that doesn't mean his performance was any less than the other players. It just shows, you know, looking back at the game, it just shows that he didn't have as much influence as, say, these other 3 main crucial players. And obviously we've talked about players switching roles and whether they can be versatile. Joe Ward, a classic example of a versatile player. You know, we've seen him at left back before, even though he's primarily a right back, and in this game he just showed how, although he's a natural right back, he can change roles and play very well. And you would expect most right backs in the league to struggle when they had to move from the left to the right, because, you know, they may be right footed or left footed and can't really change the roles. But, you know, Ward did really well, exceptionally well in changing the role, and he was excellent. It was excellent the way he restricted Southampton's winger Nathan Redmond. You know, we know Nathan Redmond's a very fast player, very clinical finisher, but, you know, Joe Ward done very well at tracking back, making sure he could make a block on him, and obviously ultimately led to him restricting Redmond to only long range shots, which obviously none of them he scored. So, you know, we know he can play a number of positions. We've seen him in midfield in the championship years. We've seen him at left back, at right back, and to be honest, he didn't look out of place. He looked like he's a normal left back because he didn't make any errors. He done well going forward, and like I said already, with most of the defence, he was very solid there. And obviously, with Martin Kelly having a bit of dip of form, and the fact that Tompkins and Delaney were so good in this game, I can see Joe Ward being there for the future. You know, the next few games, I can certainly see him there. And until Papa Soiree comes back, I can certainly see Joe Ward keeping his place, whether it be a left back or right back. But, you know, just to sort of re-summarise, let's say, his performance, the reason I've given him a 6 is not because he had a bad performance compared to the other players. It's just because he didn't have as much influence on the game, because we know he can do crosses, we know he can find a pass, have a shot, but in this game he didn't really have as much attacking presence as we normally would see him having. But, you know, he's still done the defensive work, which ultimately led to us, you know, getting the clean sheet. And I've said this already, the fact that he's versatile and can change just shows how good of a player he is and how crucial he is to the way Palace play. But like I said here, you know, the fact that he played out of position just showed how good of a player he is. And, you know, he didn't look out of place at all. Obviously, we're going to move on to the midfield now. And obviously, in this game, although we had a change at the back, moving a centre-back to right-back, and bringing Damien Delaney back into the side, we didn't really have a change of formation as such. And obviously the last game we played a 4-4-2, but this game we went back to our sort of 4-3-3 formation, playing with the sort of, you know, your normal standard back four. You've got your 3 midfielders who interchange roles, and then you've got your 2 wingers and a striker. And obviously I'll go on to talk about the midfield 3, which consisted of Jason Puncheon, James McArthur and Joe Ledley. But, you know, before I do that, I just want to, like I say most weeks, just going to go over once again the formation and its advantages to, let's say, the 4-2-3-1 formation. So obviously, where you've got 3 players in midfield, it gives the defence more cover. And obviously in this game, Joe Ledley was primarily the anchor role. So he was the man standing or running around the sort of the front of the back line, just giving them support. So it was almost as if you had sort of 5 defenders there. And obviously with that meant that we kept the solidity in the team. The fact that we kept a clean sheet, we didn't concede a goal, was the fact that we had obviously the defenders playing very well, but we had that little bit of cover in front. And obviously with the formation, you've got, you know, you haven't really got out and out attacking midfielders. So obviously you've got Ledley, McArthur, Puncheon interchanging roles throughout the game. So parts of the game we saw Joe Ledley playing further up the pitch, which was very rare, but primarily he was defensive. You know, see McArthur drifting from attacking offensive roles to defensive roles. And obviously Puncheon, although Puncheon was primarily an attacking role, when he had to go back, track back and defend, he's still done that. And obviously talking about the midfield, this formation gives the midfield a better supply of the ball, so more possession. And obviously when you have more possession, you can do more with the ball. So in last season, when we were playing sort of with 2 defensive midfielders, 3 attacking players, let's say, and then your striker, you didn't really get much of the ball because you haven't really got all of the players in the midfield controlling the pace of the game. But in this game, we had a better supply of the ball, and although we didn't sort of boss possession, let's say, we still had quite a lot of the ball. And when you have, like I said, when you have more possession, you have the ball more, which means you can do more with it. And that ultimately led to the 3rd bullet point, which I have here, and that is that the attackers get given better service, and obviously that is in terms of crosses and passes. So if the midfield have more of the ball, it means that they can find crosses, find passes easier than they would do before. And obviously, one of the crucial things in this game, I personally think, looking back at it, is the fact that all the players worked well together. And I think a crucial part of this is the fact that the attack can link up well with the midfield to make sure that when a pass is given from the midfield to the attack, they can use it to the advantage. And I think that sort of link-up play between different players from the field actually led to our advantage. But once again here, the 4-3-3 formation working very well for Palace, and hopefully I think we can evolve this formation even more to work to our advantage, and hopefully in the next few games it can, you know, lead to us getting more clean sheets. But like I said here, you've got your defence getting more cover with the midfielder playing the anchor role. You've got the midfield interchanging roles, getting more possession and linking up with the players. And obviously you've got the attack, who have got better supply of the ball in terms of crosses and passes. So this formation is actually leading to Palace being so much better in games. Obviously moving on to the first midfielder player, which is the primarily attacking midfielder in Jason Puncheon, who I'm going to give an 8. After a disappointing performance last week, Puncheon was magnificent with his control and passing, his alertness and great persistence to create Christian Benteke's second goal of the match, getting to the byline in time to cut the ball back, and his corner for the second goal was flicked on by Ledley for Tompkins in the first half. So obviously Jason Puncheon here, the last week against Swansea, he had a quite disappointing performance, you know, giving away niggly free kicks and not really having the attacking presence he would normally have. But in this game, he was magnificent, you know, whether it be his control of the ball, the fact that he can slow the game down and have that sort of control on the game, whether you want to counter-attack, whether you just want to do a simple attack, and also the passing as well. That was magnificent. The fact that he could find a player who was in the box, the fact that he could get a cross in, all of that led to us dominating the game and creating attacking chances. And obviously, we've talked about how good an attacking player he is, but he showed great alertness to create Christian Benteke's second goal. So obviously he took the corner which set up the goal. Obviously that got deflected out to James McArthur. James McArthur had a shot which was deflected, and obviously punching instead of just sort of trying to pass the ball back to get another crossing. You know, he was persistent with what he wanted to do, and he got the ball to the byline, stopped. Literally, if you look back at the replay, the player was running at him. He sort of stopped to man mark him. Punch and stopped as well, had a fault, saw Benteke was in there, and then he whipped the cross in for Benteke to get it. And there was a lovely sort of creation there of a goal, let's say, a lovely assist from him. You know, the fact that he got to the byline, got enough time to think about his decision, then cut the ball back into the area from the corner. And obviously, talking about corners, he did technically get a pre-assist, as I like to call him, from the corner. You know, he whipped in the corner for the second goal. It met the head of Ledley. Ledley backheaded it, I believe it was, to Tompkins for Tompkins to score. So once again, he's showing what presence he has from set pieces and the fact that he can produce brilliant deliveries. But, you know, I've said this already, you know, he was very disappointing against Swansea, but in this game, he came back all guns blazing. He was magnificent with his control. The fact that when he had the ball, he could do magic with it, let's say. The fact that he could find plays, link up the attack to the midfield, which is what I've said with the formation. And obviously the passing as well. And I think in the, I'll tell you later in the Man of the Match award, some stats regarding Punchin's game. And actually, if you look at his pass success rate, which I believe is in the regions of about 90 to 94, I believe it was, sort of in between that, maybe 93. Let's say 93% passing succession. So that just shows how magnificent his passing was. The fact that he hardly ever misplaced a pass, and the fact that he was always finding players. But like I said here, you know, we know he's a good attacking threat, and he showed that with his alertness throughout the game to find other players. And although he hasn't scored a goal this season, which, you know, we'd expect him to do, because we know how good he is at scoring goals, long shots, you know, he's always looking to supply, and he's got so many assists this season. He's got 3 assists this season. So, you know, that just shows how he's not looking to create chances for himself, but he's looking for other teammates so they can get the ball. But, you know, like I said here, set piece delivery was fantastic. Both of his set pieces led to goals. So once again, just showing how good of a player he is. And obviously, I did say this already, but if you do want to listen to Punchin's performance statistically, then listen up to the Man of the Match section, because obviously with an 8, he is a very high nomination. Or he's quite a crucial person, let's say, for the Man of the Match, because he was an absolutely solid performance. So if you do want to listen to some stats regarding his performance, which are very good, by the way, passing succession and things like that, then go on and listen to the Man of the Match section. But I've said this already, 3 assists this season. Hopefully he can bag maybe 1 or 2 goals this season. But at the end of the day, he's looking to supply players and help other players, rather than being greedy and looking to supply himself. Sorry. So obviously moving on to the second midfield player, which is James McArthur, who I'm going to give a 7. Palace's midfield made a significant difference in this game. 2. Southampton's central midfield struggled to deal with the hounding from McArthur and co. The Scotsman produced a tireless performance. Although he didn't do anything spectacular in the game, he done his usual running and dirty work, partnering nicely with Joe Ledley in protecting the defence through the middle. So obviously James McArthur, I've given him a 7, and actually I've talked about the defence being very good, but I think Palace's midfield made a significant difference in the game too, the fact that we could control the game. And obviously I think McArthur was quite crucial to the way we played. And obviously we talked about Southampton not being their usual self, not being able to create as many chances as they would normally do, and I think that's mainly due to not necessarily McArthur in particular, but certainly the hounding from the midfield. The fact that we've played this high press game where we want to put players under pressure, we want them to lose the ball, we want to keep running at players, we want to turn around players. So things like this, you know, made Southampton struggle in the game. And I think, you know, McArthur is a classic example of that, because we know he's got this high press game where he keeps running at players, he's got this fantastic stamina about him, and that was the thing. And I suppose a way to describe it is a tireless performance. You know, he didn't stop till the end, and although he got substituted off late in the game, it just showed once again that he keeps going. His stamina was fantastic, and he kept going to the end with this high press game, so keeping Southampton players under pressure so that we could pounce on a mistake. And, you know, we talk about players doing spectacular things, so Punchin, you know, with fantastic passing, vision, the fact that he can control the game. And, you know, McArthur isn't really a fantastic player in that sense. But, you know, he doesn't do anything spectacular. He doesn't score that many goals. He doesn't really assist players. But he does the running. He does the dirty work. And, you know, we talk about a player playing the anchor role. He did partner very nicely with Joe Ledley in that role. So we talk about the formation, giving the back line a bit of support. And in this game, he partnered very well with Joe Ledley in that sort of midfield three to make sure we were defensively solid. But, you know, like I said, the crucial thing about his performance was the fact that he didn't keep running. He'd done the dirty work, making tackles, making blocks. And, you know, ultimately led to us having a good control of the game. But certainly, James McArthur, I think he deserves the 7. And I'll go on to talk about the man and match section about him. And I'm not going to give it away what I'm going to talk about with James McArthur. But certainly do listen on so you can get an idea about his performance. But once again, his performance and also the midfield performance did make a significant difference to the way Palace played. Obviously, moving on to the final player, who's primarily the defensive midfielder throughout the game, and that is Joe Ledley, who I'm going to give a 6. When Palace went on their unbeaten run in September, Ledley was part of that side alongside McArthur. They seemed to gel well in the middle, and he probably deserves to keep Cabaye out of the team based on this performance. Whilst playing the holding role, Ledley provided a safety net whenever the Saints tried to break away. His flick on for Punchin's goal from Punchin's corner showed great creativity to set up Tompkins for his second. So obviously Joe Ledley here, I've talked about this with the midfield already, you know, I've talked about them making a difference throughout the game, talked about them, you know, being the hounding players throughout the game. But, you know, when we were quite successful in September, we went on that sort of 6-game unbeaten run. Ledley was quite crucial to that, and he did form quite a nice partnership with McArthur. And in this game, he carried on that partnership. And once again, them two working together was a fantastic partnership. And they do work really well together. The fact that they could interchange roles, one could go attacking, one can go defensive, and also sort of the awareness, the fact that they talk to each other, which is quite crucial throughout the game to make sure they were in the right positions. And I've talked about this, and do comment below what you think. You know, based on this performance and the performances he's had before, I think Cabaye will probably be kept out of the team because of his performance. You know, so do comment below whether you think Cabaye should be in the side or Ledley should be in the side. But based on this performance, which is a very good hounding performance, very good high press performance from Ledley, certainly will keep Cabaye out of the team. And obviously we talk about him playing the anchor, the holding role. You know, Ledley did that very well. You know, he had that safety net, he gave that bit of support to the back line. So whenever you know, Southampton went on the counter-attack, there was an extra player for them to try and get past in Joe Ledley, which gave the defence either a little bit more time to organise themselves to be ready for the counter-attack, or just, you know, a bit of relief for them. Obviously, we talked about Punchin's deliveries being good, the fact that he's finding players. You know, Tompkins done very well with the opportunity. Tompkins done very well from the opportunity from Ledley. So obviously, Punchin's corner came into the area, lovely ball in. But, you know, the flick on was even better. You know, Ledley was aware that the ball was coming in, got his head, hit the ball with the back of his head, I believe it was, and obviously found Tompkins for Palace's second goal. So obviously, we talk about Punchin, you know, looking to supply players, and obviously Ledley in a defensive role couldn't really look to supply players, but certainly from set piece opportunities he was looking for players. You know, lovely flick on for the goal. And obviously I have given him a 6, which is slightly lower than McArthur and Punchin, but that's not necessarily because he had a worse performance. It's just the fact that, similar to Ward, he didn't really have as much influence on the game as these players did. You know, he did very good defensive work, he grounded out the result, he kept going, you know, a tireless performance similar to McArthur, but, you know, he didn't really have a big of an opportunity, a big of an influence on the game as the other players. Obviously, now moving on to the front three, which consists of Wilfried Zaha, Christian Benteke and Andros Townsend. Obviously, in this game, we've talked about Townsend in the past not wanting to play on the left because he prefers to play on the right, but in this game, Wilfried Zaha played primarily as the right forward. So obviously, start with Wilfried Zaha, a 7. He doesn't get a great deal of credit for his defensive work, but against Ryan Bertrand and Buffal, Zaha tracked back excellently a number of times. It was another example of the team effort that went into this win. The usual offensively from him, running, pace and skill, he had it all. But again, no assist or goal this week. But you know what Wilf's going to bring to the side. So obviously Wilfried Zaha here, I'm giving him the 7 because I think it was a very decent performance from him. And we talked about how good the team were defensively, and obviously we were very good going forward. You know, Zaha, Benteke, Townsend, very good going forward. But obviously we were probably even better, let's say, defensively, and I think Zaha was quite crucial to that, because, you know, we talk about Zaha having skill, having pace, you know, running past players, you know, to try and create opportunities, and that's all well and good. You know, you've got attackers who can use their skill to, you know, try and create chances offensively for the team. But, you know, Zaha in this game done lots of defensive work, and he doesn't really get the credit for this. And obviously, if you look at stats, statistically, we know he's one of the best attackers in Europe at the moment based on form. But, you know, he doesn't never when you see these stats, he gets credited for defensive work. And obviously we talk about players tracking back, you know, the fullbacks tracking back doing work. You talk about the midfielders tracking back and defending. Zaha done this on numerous occasions, you know, especially against Ryan Bertrand, Buffal. He tracked back on them, making sure he was man marking them to, you know, give them as little opportunity as possible. And if you look back at the game, you know, we kept a clean sheet. I think Zaha was quite crucial to that because, you know, he is one of the fastest players on the team. So if he can do defensive work, it adds a little bit more to the team because, you know, the likes of Ward, Tompkins, Damien, Delaney, Ledley, they're not the fastest players. So if you've got someone like Zaha tracking back and helping the back line, it means that you've got a little bit more cover as well. And obviously, it's just an example of how the team effort went into the game. The fact that, yes, the attackers are attacking, but they wanted to help the team in the fact that they were defensive. And, you know, and Zaha as well, you know, the fact that he had the team effort went into the win, and although he's an attacking player, he still chipped in to the defensive work. And obviously, we know how good he is offensively, but in this game, once again, he showed his running, his pace, his skill, and he had it again. You know, we know what he can do, and in this game, he done it. And, you know, the last few games, I think it's the last sort of 7 games, he was involved in all of the 7 goals in the last 7 games. But obviously in this game, he didn't have an assist or a goal, but we know what Wolves going to bring to the side, and we saw this in the game. The fact that he can find crosses, the fact that he's got a bit of skill, the pace to get past players, and obviously talking about sort of crosses, you know, there was one cross in the first half, I believe, from the right hand side, lovely delivery, curling effort into the area, lovely weighted ball. You know, Benteke managed to get above the defender, headed it down, but it went just wide. So once again, he could have got an assist if Benteke had been in a better position. So once again, just showing his attacking work rates. But obviously, the reason I've given him a 7 is, yes, he was very good defensively, but because he didn't have an assist or a goal, he wasn't as good as we know we can get from him. The fact that he went on that 7 game run where he was involved in all of the goals, so, you know, he didn't really have that attacking presence as he normally has. You know, not saying he wasn't bad offensively, but, you know, he could have done a little bit more in the game. But defensively, that is the main thing why I've given him a 7, because it was absolutely fantastic, his defensive work. The fact that he got back and tracked back, the fact he made tackles, and the fact that, you know, he made sure he was man marking the likes of Bertrand and Buffal. Now, obviously, I've talked about assists and goals. You know, Zaha this season has already got 5 assists, which is, I believe, the joint 3rd in the Premier League. So he's, you know, once again showing his class at you know, at being one of the best wingers in the league. And obviously, talking about being one of the best wingers, statistically speaking, you know, for take-ons, he's one of the best wingers in Europe, you know, with the likes of Neymar and Hazard. So once again, we talked about Zaha having the skill and having this ability, but once again, he's showing it in the fact that he can get assists and goals. And like I said already, although we didn't see it in this game, we know what there is to come from him. So hopefully in the next few games, he can once again find this streak where he goes on the run, where he's assisting players, scoring goals. But once again, I've given him a 7. He fully deserved that, not just for his defensive work, but his defensive work. Obviously, moving on to the striker, Christian Benteke, who I'm going to give a 8. Much will be said of Fraser Forster's missed kick, which handed Benteke the first goal, but it came because of the Belgian striker's effort to close him down, and the composure with the finish was excellent. The second showed a poacher's instinct that Palace have missed, and although both goals were 2 easy tap-ins, he won't care, and that will boost his confidence hugely. They were the first goals at Palace for they were the first 2 goals for Palace at Selhurst Park 2. An aerial presence as usual. So obviously, before I go on to talk about, you know, Christian Benteke and his performance, I'd just like to say happy birthday to him. So hope you had a nice day, and I believe you probably would have had a good day considering you scored 2 goals on your birthday. But, you know, hope you had a good day, and hopefully in the next few weeks you can, you know, think it's your birthday again and score another brace. But obviously we talked about, you know, Palace being good defensively, and, you know, the first goal, that sort of first 20 minutes, let's say, of the game, it was very cagey, no real opportunities for neither side. But obviously Fraser Forster, just a simple back pass from his defender, he managed to miss kick it, and then Benteke just rounded him and put it into the area, so into the goal. So you may say that that's a lucky goal, and most people would say it's a bit of luck, the fact that he scored the goal. But, you know, the fact that he was closing down the play. The fact that he was put in Fraser Forster under pressure, so he made the error, is excellent. And obviously the composure with the finish is excellent as well. So we've seen in the past, players that when they're in the area, they see the goalkeeper makes a mistake, they think, oh, this is an easy goal, and then they sky it over the bar. But Benteke, he stayed composed. He made sure that all of that effort he made putting, closing the play down, got rewarded, and obviously he got the goal. And like I said already, the finish was excellent. And obviously his second goal, he scored another goal. Just a poacher's instinct, simple cross from Zaha, from Punchin, from the byline. Benteke not scoring with his head, lovely, powerful shot past the keeper. So, it's something that Palace have missed in the last few weeks. Last season, our problem was scoring goals. This season, we're scoring quite a lot of goals. And I think that's because, Benteke brings this sort of poacher's instinct to the side. The fact that when he sees the ball coming, he won't give the defenders or the goalkeeper any chance, and he'll attack the balls. And once again in this game he showed how powerful a shot he has. And obviously I've talked about the goals being too easy tap-ins. He won't care because he scored 2 goals in his birthday that will hugely boost his morale and his confidence, and hopefully he can bring that confidence into the next game and maybe get a few more goals. And obviously you talk about stats, here's his first goals at Palace, or for Palace at Selhurst Park. So all of his other goals, 5 goals, have been away from home, at various stadiums. But it was nice for the home fans to finally get rewarded by seeing the quality he has. And 2 goals at Selhurst Park, not too bad. And 2 goals on your birthday is not bad either. And obviously we talked about Christian Benteke being an aerial presence. Once again, when Zaha was putting balls into the box, he was able to attack them well. So once again proving how good of an aerial threat he is. And obviously we've talked about how good the defence was and how solid we were. The solidity was back into the side. Christian Benteke was criticised last week, by pundits for not, marking players close enough for the goals we conceded against Swansea. The fact that he wasn't on the back post with certain goals. And ultimately, yes, he should have been doing better. He should have been marking the player. But at the end of the day, he's an attacker and he shouldn't really have to be defending, because ultimately that's led to the defensive players. But in this game, he took that criticism on the hand last week. And in this game, once again, showed his defensive work as well. So we know he's good going forward, but in this game, with Hennessy commanding him, he made sure when Southampton had set pieces, he was on the back post so he could clear the ball away, which he'd done on a few occasions. And also, there's a few opportunities where their crosses are coming in. He marked a player and was able to use his physicality and headering ability to clear the danger. So yes, we know he's a good attacking threat, scoring 2 goals, staying composed, having a poacher's instinct about him. But when he had to be defensive, he was. And obviously I've talked about stats with quite a lot of players. This season Benteke's already scored 7 goals. So we're about 1/3 away or through the season. He's already scored 7 goals. So that's fantastic. Hopefully maybe he can score 21 goals this season and take us into that sort of territory with a player scoring 20 goals, and that would be nice because it shows how good of a bargain he was. And actually, if you look back at how much we paid for him, about let's say £27 million, that's slightly starting to pay back itself, the fact that he's getting goals from the money we paid for him. And obviously on the subject of goals, 7 goals, that's level with last season's top scorer. So last season our top scorers, I think there was joint top scorers with Balassi, Dwight Gale, Johan Cabaye. But Christian Benteke on his own has already scored 7 goals. We're not even 1/3 of the way through the season. So hopefully, like I said already, he can bag a few more goals in the next few weeks. And, if he can, maybe hit the 20 digits. But certainly, he's a valuable attacking threat to the side. Obviously, moving on to the final player playing on the left-hand side, and that is Andros Townsend, who I'm going to give a 6. It was an improved performance compared to his previous weeks, but he still lacks that cutting edge that Palace paid £13 million for. His defensive work, much like Zaha, made a telling contribution. No real goal-scoring chances, and that may need to change moving forward. He should be chipping in a bit more now with shots and crosses, like we know he can do. So obviously Andros Townsend here, I've given him a 6, and much like the other players, because it's slightly lower, it doesn't necessarily mean he had a bad performance. And, he didn't have a bad performance, and it was considerably better and improved from his previous week. So against the likes of Swansea, Man City, he didn't really have as much impact as he would have liked to have. But in this game against Southampton, he was very good. And, we know how good of a player he is and the cutting edge he can have. But in this game, we still struggle to see that. And, we paid £30 million for him. We want to see a little bit more cutting edge from him, whether that be shots, crosses and goals. But, in this game, it was much like Zaha, very good defensive work. And it was a performance that was improved from the last few weeks. But, we talked about the defence being solid, and like Zaha, it made a telling contribution. The fact that he was using his pace to track back, defend, make tackles, make blocks, just shows how much of a defensive threat he can be, the fact that he can track back and try and help the back line and give them support, and the fact that he can go forward as well. But obviously, we've talked about him not really having a good performance of late. And this game, it was quite evident. He didn't really have any real goal-scoring opportunities. He didn't. Normally, he likes to cut inside and have a shot from maybe 20 yards, and a few of them have hit the bar, a few of them have gone in. But in this game, he didn't really have any chances to do that. And we want this to change going forward. We know the quality he's got. Taking long shots from 30 yards, the fact that he can cut inside, the fact that he can put crosses in. We know he can do that. So now he needs to chip in a bit more by putting in more crosses, more shots, because we know he can do it. So hopefully, if he can do that and finally sort of add what Zaha's got, the end product, and the fact that he can find crosses, hopefully that can sort of improve his whole game all around. And obviously in the last sort of, I believe a few months ago, I was talking about that he was a bit too greedy, the fact that he took shots, from 20 yards out and some of them went wide, and he should have really been looking for a pass for his teammates. But now he's sort of gone to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Now he doesn't seem to be finding play, or he seems to be finding players more than he's having opportunities himself. So whether that's because he's got less confidence in himself, the fact that he believes he might not be able to hit it, or whether that's just because he just doesn't want to pass it. Maybe in this next few games he needs to change that, just to get that balance just about right, which he had in the Stoke game where he scored a goal. In that game he was finding players, getting assists in, getting crosses in, and then he had the shot himself which he scored from. So if he has that confidence in the next few games, especially against Hull, I can see him maybe bagging a goal. The fact that he can have a shot, the fact that he can create these opportunities is what we need from him. So once again, a 6 from him doesn't necessarily mean he had a worse performance than the other players, because his performance was well, but much like other players in the team, he didn't really have as much impact than the other players. But his performance was considerably better than in past weeks. But hopefully, we know he can do good work defensively, much like Zaha. But now we've got to see more attacking threat from him, like Zaha. So he's like Zaha defensively, but he's got to try and aspire to be more like Zaha offensively. Obviously, talking, onto the substitutions now. Obviously, you've heard all of the starting 11. Bakary Sakho, Matthew Flamini and Martin Kelly were the substitutions. And obviously I'm not really going to give them any ratings because they weren't really on the pitch long enough, and considering we were leading 3-0 at the time, you would have thought Pardew maybe would have brought players on, but he waited as long as possible to try and stick with the winning team we had to keep sort of that solidity. And then eventually he brought the players on just to sort of run out the rest of the game. Obviously Bakary Sakho, his introduction actually gave Palace a more direct attacking option. He got involved straight away and looked very positive, with his run and cross forcing Southampton to concede the corner that ultimately Palace scored their third. Obviously Matthew Flamini, he came on to shore up Palace's midfield, didn't really put a foot wrong, and it's nice to see him get more game time for the defensive midfielder. Obviously Martin Kelly came on for Tompkins, and like Flamini, he didn't make any mistakes, but it's good to see him being given a little bit more playing time. Obviously Bakary Sakho, just sort of touching on it a little bit, his introduction, a little bit more direct attacking option, the fact that he has a little bit more pace about him, so the fact that he can run at players, and his physicality as well, the fact that he can get past players, and he got involved straight away. He picked up the ball on the left hand side, made a lovely positive run down the ring, went to cross the ball in with a lovely sort of curling effort. Maybe it was going to be met by a header Benteke. Obviously that corner was defended out or blocked by Southampton, and obviously that corner led to Palace scoring their third. The fact that Punchin took it deflected wide, MacArthur on the edge of the area passed it or shot it, and it deflected to Punchin scored. So it just shows that, that little impact he had on the game, the fact that he won Palace the corner, just shows how much of an impact he came on. Obviously Matthew Flamini didn't really do anything in the game, but he came on to shore up Palace's midfield, keep the solidity, and obviously his experience came through. And much like Kelly as well, didn't really put a foot wrong. And at the end of the day, it's good to see him getting more game time. We know how good these players are, and obviously they're not good enough, let's say, or they're not up to that sort of quality of the other players, so they can't really get into the starting 11. But when you see performances like this, when they come off the bench, make an impact what the manager wants them to do, it just shows how good of a performance they had. So obviously now I've given you all of my ratings. I'm just going to give you a little summary, like I've done in the last few weeks, of what ratings I would give the certain sections of the field. So obviously I give ratings to the defence, the midfield and the attack, and obviously this week they're considerably higher than they have been in last week. So last week, a very bad defensive performance from Palace, against Swansea, weren't really defensively solid. We didn't have any organisation. But in this game, it was the complete opposite. We were very solid at the back, making tackles, making blocks, and that's why I'm going to give the defence an 8. Because if you look at the players in the defence. I've given 2 8s to the defenders. The fact that they made an impact, they were making tackles, making blocks, all of this stuff meant to them having a good defensive game. And one of the reasons why they've got an 8 is not necessarily because the performance was absolutely world class and they saved every opportunity Southampton had. It's the fact that we kept a clean sheet for the first time in a very long time. So that sort of alone is why I've given them quite a high rating. Obviously the midfield as well, I've given them a 7, not necessarily because they're worse than the defence or the attack, but just because they were pretty good in the game. The fact that they could supply players going forward, they could help the attack, but also, they could go back, they can defend, be that anchor role to protect, obviously, the other players. So that's why I've given the midfield a 7. And obviously the attack, we've scored 3 goals, 2 of them coming from our striker, so I'm going to give them an 8 because I think it was a very good attacking game from us. And if you look at the stats, outside of top 4 teams in the league, we're the highest scoring one, so it just shows how good of an attacking threat we are. And obviously this game, a very classic example of that. When we were going forward, we were getting crosses in. Benteke scored 2 lovely goals, just showing how good of an attacking team we are. But obviously the defence and attack, I've given them 8s because of their contribution, how critical they were to the team. And obviously the midfield, I've given them slightly less, not necessarily because the midfield were any worse, just the fact that although they were supplying players, they didn't have as much impact and as much presence, let's say, as the other sections of the pitch. But obviously just a summary of the game, we were defensively solid. The defensive performance showed heart, commitment, solidarity, and it was a worthy prize. We kept a clean sheet, and that was a worthy prize for it. The fact that we were committed, the fact that we were very solid at the back, and the fact that we showed heart. There was lovely passion in this game, and it was a very good team effort. All of the players put in 100% in this game, and although there was 1 or 2 players who put in their all but didn't really have as much impact on the game, everyone put in what they wanted, or everyone put in what they had to throughout the game. And it was packed with quality, and hopefully that this quality we've seen in this game and other games, it can set the foundations that will allow us to rebuild on this disappointment we've had in the last few weeks. So hopefully this sort of very good, committed, sort of passion performance will hopefully help us to rebuild and become better in the next few weeks. And obviously we've beat Southampton, but now we've got to move on to Hull, and hopefully we can have such a good committed performance again, which will lead us to win the game. And obviously I've talked about stats quite a lot in this podcast. I'm just going to go over briefly. I'm not going to describe them as much. I'm just going to go over briefly the sort of whoscored.com rating. So if you do want to look at statistics about any players, go on whoscored.com, I believe it is. Obviously starting goal, Wayne Hennessy, a 7.4. Joe Ward, a 6.7, Damien Delaney, a 7.7, Scott Dan, a 7.3, James Tompkins got a goal, a yellow card, and was substituted off later in the game, an 8.7, and obviously is the whoscored.com man of the match. Joe Ledley, a 7.2, Jace McCarther, who got a yellow card, a 7.6, Wilfred Zaha, a 7.1, Jason Punch with an assist, a 7.7, Andros Townsend, who got substituted late on in the game, a 6.5, and Christian Benteke with his 2 goals on his birthday, an 8.6. And obviously just looking over some of the substitutes, Martin Kelly, a 6, obviously Bakary Sacco, a 6.1, the fact that he won the corner, and obviously Matthew Flamini didn't really have that much impact, similar to Kelly, but a 6 from him. So obviously we've talked about stats, possession, we didn't really dominate in this game, 42.2% possession to 57.8, so we didn't really have that much impact there. We didn't make as many dribbles as Southampton's. We made 5 compared to their 20. Aerial duels 1, very close, 22 to Palace, 23 to Southampton. Tackles, where Southampton were on the back foot and we kept attacking them, they made significantly more tackles than we did. Corners, we've talked about them. Southampton had corner after corner, so they had 9 corners compared to our 4. And obviously dispossessed, Palace were dispossessed 25 times compared to Southampton's 13. But then when we were dispossessed, all of the players, Zaha, Townsend, all of the defensive players as well, they all trekked back to make sure we could get the ball back. And obviously we talked about Palace, having opportunities. We did actually have less shots. We had 9 shots in the game compared to Southampton 7. So although we didn't have shots and we didn't create that many opportunities in that sense, we still had a very good attacking threat. And just to finish off, whoscored.com for the 3-0 win against Southampton, I've given Crystal Palace a 7.19. Now for my man of the match award. Before I do that and give you my man of the match and who I thought had the biggest influence in the game, and I'm going to give you the results of my Twitter poll. So this week I've narrowed it down to 4 nominations, even though there were 1 or 2 more players that I probably could have put on a list. And considering it was a Twitter poll, you can only put a maximum of 4 people on the poll. But if I had the option to put maybe 5, maybe 6 players, I certainly would have put more players on the poll. Because certainly in a good solid performance like we had against Southampton, there are a lot of players who had very key, quite crucial, fantastic performances. But obviously this week I managed to narrow it down to 4, and obviously there was 1 player who just missed out, and I'll go on to explain who that was. But the 4 nominations were Delaney, James Tompkins, Jason Puncheon and Christian Benteke. So like I say every week, if you do want to vote in next week's man of match poll, then of course do follow my Twitter. So the poll isn't run by Crystal Palace, it's actually run on my own personal Twitter account, which you can find at the CPC podcast. Sorry. So if you do want to give me a follow on there, obviously I do regularly update with the latest news. But obviously if you do want to get your opinion heard with the man of match poll, then of course go and vote in it. But obviously starting in 4th place with 5% of the votes was James Tompkins. In 3rd place, with a very close to 2nd, with a 24% of the votes, was Christian Benteke, which means in 2nd place and runner-up for this week's Man of Match award was Jason Puncheon with 27% of the votes, which means the winner with just under half the percentage of the votes, and winner of the Man of Match award for the game against Southampton is Delaney with an impressive 44%. So congratulations, Damien. You don't get a trophy or certificate, but you do get my sincere congratulations on what was a very solid performance by you. And obviously I'll go on to talk about who my personal man of match was. But obviously I do want to touch on this. You know, there are players who've missed out on this award, and if I could put the whole team on Twitter and so people could vote on all of the players, then I would do that. But all round, it was a great team performance all round. We were very solid, a very good performance by us. And obviously the last few games our defence has been very bad, and a word I used to describe it was lackadaisical. And in this game we were absolutely solid defensively. You know, Southampton kept having corner after corner, we defended that very well, and obviously as always we were very effective going forward. And if anything in this game we were probably better defensively, because you know we were under pressure from, not because of an attacking perspective from Southampton, because they weren't as good going forward as they normally are, but from set pieces they were a threat, but we managed to deal with them. But you know, we were very effective going forward. You know, the fact that we scored 3 goals, and obviously just on the subject of the defence, we kept our first clean sheet since April, so a good stat there. Obviously just touching on the players while I'm putting them on there, Delaney, you know, 3 words really to talk about his performance: committed, strong and assured. And they're the main words I've used, and you've probably heard about this in the player rankings already, but you know, I've talked about it already. The defence kept a clean sheet, he was quite crucial to that. His leadership, the fact that he threw himself about, used his experience, all of that stuff was fantastic. And obviously just a phrase, let's say, a solid and impressive game. You know, the fact that he kept a clean sheet, and the fact that it was quite impressive, the fact that considering he's 35, quite an old player in terms of Premier League status, let's say, you know, he made massive tackles, he made all these blocks, he done everything which you would expect of, say, a world-class defender. So he done all of that in the game. But once again, the reason I put him on the man of the match award is because, you know, out of the defenders, he was absolutely solid. Like I said, he was committed. When a man came onto him, he made sure he committed to him, making sure he made the tackle. Very strong, very physical presence. And obviously assured. You know, the last few weeks our defence has been a bit shaky, but you know, he assured us with the clean sheet. Obviously James Tompkins, much like Delaney, playing in the defence, assured Palace's contribution to the defensive efforts, didn't make any mistakes, putting in tackles. And you know, the main reason I put him in here was the fact that he scored the goal. Now, I was debating about whether to put McArthur in or Tompkins in, and the only reason I didn't put McArthur in is not because they had worse performances, because actually if you look at their games they both have very good performances, but the only reason I put Tompkins in rather than McArthur is because he scored the goal. And obviously McArthur didn't score a goal, and although he had a very similar, maybe better performance, let's say, than Tompkins scored the goal, which ultimately put him higher up on the list. And that's not saying that McArthur had a bad game. I think that if I could put maybe 5-6 names on the list, I probably would have put McArthur on there as well, because although he had the similar performance, the goal, because Tompkins scored the goal for the 2nd successive games, you know, that's why I put him on the list, because he's shown that he can be very good defensively, but also he's got a very good attacking mind as well. And obviously McArthur, just touching on why I would have put him on there, I've already touched on it already, his performance, but it was a tireless performance. He didn't stop to the end. His stamina was fantastic throughout the game, and although he isn't spectacular, he isn't like a world-class player, you know, making these long shots, doing things like that, he did the running, he did the dirty work, done everything that you want someone playing an anchor role to do, and obviously linked up very well with Joe Ledley. And obviously I've already said this, if there were 5 nominations, he would be in it. Obviously moving on to Jason Puncheon, and you know, he's probably going to be a hot contender, and he did come second in the Twitter poll. Now obviously I've talked about in our new setup, the 4-3-3, you know, you want the midfielders to have control of the ball and the pace of the game. Jason Puncheon in this game, classic example. He was magnificent with the controlling the game, you know, finding passes, slowing down the tempo or picking up the tempo. Passing was absolutely sublime as well. You know, a few of his set pieces, corners, free kicks, lovely deliveries into the area. One of them we scored from, lovely flick on from Ledley. The other one, it got deflected out, but he managed to get on the end of another cross and then put a lovely cross in for Benteke. So once again, he's showing his quality, magnificent passing he's got, but also the ability and awareness he's got within the game to slow it down. And obviously just touching on the goal, he made sure Benteke on his birthday got his second goal of the match. He, like I said, the corner came in, it got headed away, MacArthur chipped it back in, Puncheon, nice little control on the byline, and put a first time ball, cut it across the back of goal, obviously for Benteke to score. And obviously I already said this already, the corner as well. So once again, he's providing, you know, the balls into the area, providing lovely crosses, passes, and obviously I already said it already, the control and passing is the main thing about his game. And obviously I just want to talk about a few stats I've got of of Puncheon's game. Obviously he made 77 sprints throughout the game, which is the #1 ranked player in all of the games. He ran 11.06 kilometers in the game, which is the furthest any player at Crystal Palace run during the game. He made 2 key passes, obviously both of them being for goals. That's the top of any player in the game. He had 62 touches in the game, which is the most of any player throughout the game, and his pass accuracy was 92%. And you know, we're talking about the chant, one of his own. Well, he is one of our own because he was first in every single stat. So it's just showing there, you know, I've said that he was magnificent, but the stats are there to back it up. He made sprints, he made distance running, he made passes, he had touches in the area, and also his passing was very accurate. So once again, a very good performance by him. And obviously Benteke, you know, when you score 2 goals, you're going to expect to be on the man of match shortlist, and that's why I've put him on there. You know, the fact that he had a poacher's instinct, the fact that when the chances came to him, he took them, and although they were 2 easy tap-ins, the fact that he stayed composed and didn't, you know, put the goal over, you know, is fantastic. And obviously it was his birthday, so happy birthday, Christian. Nice for you to get a brace on your birthday. But you know, we've talked about him. He's got 7 goals now and in the Premier League, which is more than any other player from last season. So last season our top goal scorer was 7 goals. Benteke's already matched that, and what are we, like 1/3 through the season. So this will boost his confidence, and hopefully he can build on that in the next coming weeks. And obviously we're talking about stats once again. This was his first goal at Selhurst Park, and actually there were 2 of them. So once again, he's showing that he's finally rewarded the home fans with some goals at Selhurst. And obviously we know he's an aerial presence, and he done that well as well, having 1 header go quite wide of the post, but the fact that he was able to get higher than the defender is very good. And obviously I do have a stat for him as well. And obviously Christian Benteke scored his first Premier League goal brace since March 2015, and it's the perfect birthday present. So that is from one of the stat sites on Twitter. So once again, showing there that, you know, the fact that he scored a brace, he scored them in a pass, and now he's bringing that experience he's had to Palace and scoring a brace, which 2 players did do last season. But, you know, Benteke is once again showing his quality in the fact that he can score goals. And I must mention, you know, people say he can only score goals with his head. Well, this game, both of his goals came with his feet. And obviously there the players sort of missed out. Obviously the likes of MacArthur missed out, Zaha missed out. So all of these players put in very good solid performances, and like I said already, it was very hard to narrow it down to 4. And like I said, if I had 5 or 6 nominations, I'd put them guys in it, and it is really hard to choose. But you know, the birthday boy Benteke, he scored 2 goals, so that's why I'm going to give it to him. So congratulations, Benteke. You do win my man of match poll, and obviously the Twitter poll as well. And the only reason I've given it to you over the other players is, you know, we all put in, the whole team put in exactly the same performance. Everyone was fantastic offensively and defensively, but you especially, you're attacking, you scored 2 goals, and defensively, unlike the last few games, you made sure you were marking your man. When you had to be on the back post, you were there. You got headers away to clear the danger. And you know, talking about headers, yes, you were good defensively headering, but also you had chances as well. And obviously do comment below with what you think and which, you know, player you think deserved the man of the match. And actually, you know, Do comment below whether you think McArthur should have been in there, whether Tompkins should have come out, and vice versa, even all these other players. But once again, just running through them, Delaney, a fantastic defensive work, making tackles, keeping us the clean sheet. Same with Tompkins, Tompkins got a goal as well as being solid at the back. Jason Punchin, first in every single stat in this game. He was fantastic. Technically 2 pre-assists, let's say. He got 1 assist in the game and he got a pre-assist. So 2 assists technically in this game. But once again, his control, passing, alertness was fantastic. And obviously Benteke, he scored 2 goals, had a lovely poacher's instinct about him, and obviously got the 2 goals. But like I said already, if you do want to comment below with what you think and who you thought deserves the Man of Match award. So now you've heard the match report, player rankings and my Man of Match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got an exclusive interview with Alan Pardew, James Tompkins and Christian Benteke following the game.
James, 3-0 win today, and a goal for you must be a massive relief.
Yeah, massive. It's obviously not just the way we won, it's the clean sheet as well, which was massive for us. Most welcome clean sheet that was, and the lads are all to take credit for that. It was not just the back 4 or 5, including the keeper, obviously, but it's the whole way through the team. We defended well. We needed a bit of luck. When we were due a bit, and obviously with the first goal, that took us on our way.
Were there any nerves at all going into the game?
No, I think you can tell the way we started the game, how sort of on the front foot we were, and I'll come into every game knowing that we're going to score goals. It's just obviously at the other end we need to try and stop them a bit more than we have been. And today was, we had goals in abundance, and then obviously kept a clean sheet. So it's a nice little balance that was.
You played right back for West Ham quite a lot, but how was it today after playing centre back for most of the season?
Yeah, physically it's obviously a lot more different than playing centre back. Obviously towards the end I was getting a bit tired, and it's a completely different scenario. Obviously, like you said, I played there before, but to play it the first time obviously this year is still a little bit different for me. But I play anyway for the team, and it's obviously nice, like you said, to chip in with a goal as well.
What's it been like at the training ground this week?
It's as if we were flying high, in the league. It's no different to what it was at the start of the season. All the lads are very positive. You come into our place, you wouldn't have predicted where we were in the league at the time. It's just one of them things. I think sometimes you just need to get a bit lucky in this game, and we did today, and we took full advantage of it.
And I suppose the aim now is just keep focused for Hull next weekend.
Oh yeah, for sure. Today was an absolutely massive game, and next week's just as big. So we obviously got the big boys going on, but we need to take one game as it comes, and this confidence we need to take into Hull, because it's going to be a difficult game at their place, but it's just nice, like you say, to get that win under your belt.
And so finally, have you got a goals target this season? You're doing well so far.
No, but the gaffer said at the start of the season, and he reckons I could get more than Scotty. So, and I didn't believe him when he said it, but it's nice to obviously chip in with a few. At West Ham, I didn't really score as many and as consistently as I have been doing this year for Palace. So, it's just nice, it seems to be falling right for me in the box at the minute.
Christian, first of all, happy birthday. Good birthday present?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing day for me today. Today is my birthday, obviously, and I really wanted to win this game to celebrate it properly, and that's why the lads did, and I'm very happy today.
And 2 goals, your first goals at home as well. Was that important for you?
Yeah, finally, because I was a little bit frustrated on myself that all the goals that I scored so far was away, and today I had the opportunity to score at home, and I'm very happy.
And with that first goal, I guess it makes it worth the while. All those times you chase the keeper down and he just clears it. That's what you do it for, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like more. It was instinctive. I said just press and see what's gonna happen. And the keeper, misses shot, and was good for me and for the team.
And the team defensively, that clean sheet is really important, isn't it?
I think was also one of the main thing today. It's to keep the null behind it. That's why we did. We really worked really hard, and today I think we deserve to get those 3 points.
And the support from the fans, it could have been a bit nervy today after last week, but they were great.
I think they've been with us through our tough weeks, and it's also their victory, because they've been behind us all the way, and I think it's a great day for Crystal Palace fans as well.
And finally, Hull up next weekend. What's the aim this week? Just keep working on the same things you've been working on this week?
I think we are a long way to go, and it's going to be a massive game against Hull. Yeah. And Yeah, it's not finished. It's just the beginning of something good, hopefully, and then we're just gonna carry on in that way.
Alan, 3 points, 3 goals and a clean sheet. You must be delighted.
Yeah, because we had a few things hanging over us that were not pleasant when you're a football team. No clean sheet, no win for 6 games. A lot of pressure and home form not great. So ticked a lot of boxes today to put that right. It came from a really disciplined performance, and all the stuff we'd worked on this week was about making sure we weren't going to give the opposition any kind of gift. At set plays, we must have descended 7 or 8 set plays today, maybe 9, more than I would have liked, but with the circumstances of us having the league, that's understandable. We defended them really, really well, and we scored from a set play, which we should do, because we're a really dominant team at set plays. So we turned that on its head. More importantly for the club today, it was a massive win. Our fans were brilliant today. I thank them for the support they give me and the team. We're nothing without them, and we really needed them today, and they give us a nice solid atmosphere to work off.
You mentioned the set pieces there. James Tompkins with the goal today. He was playing at right back, but I suppose does that give you an extra attacking threat at set pieces with him, Delaney and Scott Dan? And
an extra defensive situation as well, because with the goals we conceded at set plays, we needed to maybe get another big one in there and make sure that no one was going to dictate to us from set plays. He was actually better at defending set plays than he is at attacking them, but he nicks a goal as well, which we worked on, and fair play to Keith Millen. That was a set play that he'd put together, and we got the reward for it.
Christian Benteke, 2 goals today, his first goals at home. It's great having a striker like that just takes the chances.
Yeah, but we're really used to good centre forwards here. Glenn Murray, Mark Bright, and he is in a chain of those. Somebody not just doing his own individual performance, but doing it for the team. Very easy for a player of his stature to blame everybody else. Huge signing he's been for us financially. He could look around and expect a bit more from the group. No, he didn't do that. He did everything else. Dug in, won it, come back, defended. I'm absolutely delighted with him.
And finally, just looking ahead to Hull next week, just looking for the same amount of fight this week and next weekend.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that isn't solving all our ills, that win today. Hull is a massive game for us next weekend, and we got to go there and make sure, first and foremost, we don't get beat, and secondly, we try and win the game.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Alan Pardew, James Tompkins and Christian Benteke had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Southampton. But make sure to come back next week for my post-match review of the game against Hull City. So thanks for listening, and remember to up the Palace.